Hello, Zach McReynolds here of the Cherrie and Zach team, NextHome Real Estate Rockstars. What's Look, that's my name. Hey, wanted to do a video today talking a little bit about the top 10 mistakes we see buyers making. We've seen a lot of stuff. We have seen it on both sides. Mistakes buyers make when working with us, mistakes we see buyers make when we're the listing agent. So we kind of put together this list. It's not really in any particular order, but it is, as we kind of compiled the list, things that we see often enough that should be addressed. So, number 10. This is huge, man. Not talking to a lender. This could be as important as number one. Again, they're not in any particular order, but this is a big deal. You think you want to buy a house, you start looking at properties. You're, looking at stuff for $600,000, $650,000, and then once you talk to a lender, you find out that not only what you're qualified for, and you might be qualified for $600,000 or $650,000, but what your budget, what your monthly spend is way less, and you can only buy a house for what your budget wants. It's up to $450,000, say. So you've been looking at stuff for $650,000. You got this great champagne taste on, champagne of the beers, Miller High Life beer budget. So this is so important. We couldn't stress this enough. Talk to a lender, and talk to a good lender, and talk to a good local lender, because that's going to go a long way versus talking to somebody, one of these online platforms where, we've seen, this just happened to us where we had a deal 2 or 3 weeks ago. The day we were supposed to close, they were approved with Wells Fargo. And then guess what? Wells Fargo goes, oops, just kidding. They don't qualify. So, and that's Wells Fargo, right? You would think that they know what the hell they're doing. Talking to a good local lender is imperative. Next. This is one of the biggest things that we see. And this is just the paint the carpet is just an allegory for basically don't not buy a house for things that you can change, right? It's an age-old adage, buy a house for the things you can't change. Location, cul-de-sac, yard, layout, whatever the things are that you love about the property that are changeable or are not changeable, love them for that. If you don't like the carpet, assume you're going to have to change carpet and paint on any property that you see, whether it's because you don't like the particular color or, the previous sellers had pets and you have an allergy, whatever it is, assume you're changing carpet and paint. That is not a reason to not like a property. That seems pretty like a given. That's a big one that we see all the time. Negotiations start with the first point of contact. So if you go into an open house, we say, take our cards, hand them our card, let them know that you're represented by an agent or whoever you're represented by. But if you love the home, try to not jump for joy and tell them how much you love it, because then when we're negotiating, you maybe giving up a little bit of your leverage position. I think that seems pretty obvious, but even at the front door, because of Ring doorbells these days or nanny cams, people do like to go back and listen to those or watch them or whatever. So contain your enthusiasm, talk about it later. We'll leave. We can go to Starbucks, catch up. If you go to an open house without us, then, do your best to say little as possible, honestly. Next. Not understanding the current market conditions. This is a big one. We're in a really interesting market. Today in Santa Clarita, November 9th, there are 440 houses on the market. That's incredibly low. A year ago this time, we were in the 800s and approaching 900, which was the most we'd had since the bubble burst. So we're at a very low inventory market. Not understanding that and, trying to write $40,000 under asking on a property that just came on the market yesterday, it isn't very likely. And, that's just going to lead you to probably not get into counter, not get in the property. So understanding the market, having an agent that understands the market and can advise you properly and not let you get in your own way is truly important. Number 6. This is more so, coming up the last couple years, even more so than it was a few years ago. You can easily, on some of these sites like Zillow or whatever, you can click the button and go, show me the property tomorrow at 2:30. And what happens in that case is you're going to be met by some random agent. You have no idea who they are, but they're going to show you the house. And if you like the house, they now are your representation because they're the one that showed you the property. Now you're trusting in this person. You have no idea who they are, what their credentials are, what their experience level is, if they know how to write a contract, if they've ever written a contract, and you're trusting them to hopefully get you the house that you've now fallen in love with. That is 100% not what you should be doing. And I actually get to another one on here that buyers aren't doing. Well, we'll get to that one in a minute, but yeah, trusting some random person to be your representation on the property that you're going to die if you don't get is a huge mistake. And you're really just doing yourself a huge disservice. And then that rolls right into this, just using an inexperienced agent or lender. We've got countless story after story of either the agent who wrote the offer, making a huge snafu, or a lender, they didn't properly, check your income or whatever, and you didn't actually qualify for the property, or the agent that wrote the offer for you, you didn't get your offer accepted because they didn't write the correct offer. They didn't check a box, or they, we're in this low inventory market. Many of our listings, the last couple of weeks, we've had 5 offers, 6 offers, 9 offers. We had one with 12 offers. That's, 11 people that didn't get the house. In the 9 offer scenario, 8 people didn't get the house. What if they're apples to apples? If you and 2 other people write an offer all the same, who's the seller going to choose? If all things are considered, price is the same, 30-day escrow, whatever, it's all apples to apples, then what are they going with? They're going to go with who has a good reputation, who has a trusted lender that is known for getting the job done. These are all things that matter. So something to take into consideration. And again, goes into another one we will get into in a moment. This I hear all the time, and it's crazy to me. I don't want to get in a bidding war. Well, again, we're in a low inventory market. I know you don't want to get in a bidding war, but just because there's multiple offers doesn't mean that you're going to have to pay $40,000 over, asking and waive your appraisal. That's not necessarily the case, but a good property is going to have many people interested in it, especially depending on your price point, right? You can barely get a house in Santa Clarita for under $500,000 anymore. So if you're looking in the $5 to $550 range, more than likely than not, any property that comes on the market is going to have multiple people interested, at least multiple buyers in your price point. So to say that you don't want to deal with that is just silly. Rates are low, inventory is down. There's going to be multiple offers. Don't let that scare you from writing an offer. Get your feet wet, jump in the pool, and have an experienced agent to help you navigate the offer process so you do get your offer accepted. Number 3. Now, this is the one I was saying we'll get to. This is crazy to me in this day and age. Like I said, people are clicking on these buttons online and you're just showing up at some property. It's like a weird blind date. You have no idea who the agent is, and they're going to show you the property. And again, if you like it, that's the person that's representing you in that home. So, a seller, when they're thinking about selling their home, usually calls a couple of agents. When we go on appointments for a listing, we're up against other agents almost every single time. Buyers should be doing this. If you're a buyer, call a few agents, talk to them, ask questions, understand the process, let them prove to you why they should be representing you. This is going to be the biggest, if not one of the biggest, financial decisions you're ever going to make in your life. Trust it to somebody who knows what they're doing, that has experience and a strategy and a game plan, and not just your buddy's sister's friend's cousin, aunts, uncles, whatever, because whatever you feel that you owe them to do that. We do open houses every weekend. I got to leave for one in like 5 minutes, actually. You know how many people I've met that said they've written offers on 9 different properties? That is absolutely crazy. If you've written on 9 different properties, something's wrong. You shouldn't have to go through that many. Again, we're in low inventory and it's competitive out there, but that's crazy. Something is wrong. You're not writing good offers. You don't have good representation. You're doing something wrong, and that can be corrected and help you get the property. And hopefully you didn't lose the property that makes you sad and cry at night. Number 2. This is pretty common too. If you're telling me that you want a house built after 2015, only Scandinavian, with no Melrose, no HOA for 500,000, that doesn't exist and it's not going to exist. So sitting there thinking that that's going to come one day, you have this unrealistic hope that this imaginary house is going to pop up and be in your price range. It isn't going to happen. So setting realistic expectations for your home purchase and what's available in your price range on the market, and not just, what's available now or what might come down the road, but just being realistic about it. Just because if it doesn't exist, it doesn't mean it may not actually ever exist. So you got to get those realistic expectations so you can make an informed decision and purchase the home that does make sense for you, for your price range and your expectations, wants versus needs, blah, 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 blah. Or the other part of this, making a house fit your budget. If you're approved for, $550, but you see the perfect house is the house that you want, the house you're going to die if you don't get, but it's $625. You can't write $550 on it because that's your budget. That house, assuming that it's priced correctly, that's the market value for that home. You've got to find a home within your budget that you love, that makes sense for you. And number one, this goes back to almost everything I just said. And, writing a bad offer. We have seen the crazy stuff even as the listing agent. We've heard of crazy stories out there from other realtors that we know. I once got an offer on a property where the buyer had a property to sell, so they were contingent, and the agent didn't write it contingent. So if we were to get an escrow with those people, and I knew that they were contingent, they told me they just didn't write it that way. If we get into escrow and the sale of your condo falls apart, you don't have any protection in place. You've put up a deposit, usually between 2% and 3%, and 3% is expected. So if you're over 500,000, you're talking about writing a deposit for 15,000 plus. And if the deal falls apart because you didn't have the right protection and you don't have a way to exit, the purchase you're in without losing your deposit, you've been put into a very precarious position by the agent that you chose to represent you, that essentially just might have cost you $15,000. And that's absolutely crazy. And even on like smaller scale, the average closed percentage to listing, price in Santa Clarita right now is right around 99%. So on average, every house that closes in Santa Clarita is averaging about 1% under the asking price. So, is there some wiggle room in a property? Of course there is, and by those statistics, that if you're in a $600,000 price range, you probably got about a $6,000 wiggle room. So, the day something comes on the market that has everything that fits your criteria and you want to go $25,000 under asking price, that's just not realistic. That's a bad offer, and that's probably going to cost you the home because you seem unrealistic. The seller isn't going to even want to counter you, send you a counter offer, or deal with you because they think that you're not realistic. So your need to negotiate or get a good deal and writing this crazy offer just costs you the property. An offer should be based on facts, on statistics. If you love a house that's listed for $625 and the last three model matches in that neighborhood sold for $610, $615, and $616, then yeah, maybe there's some wiggle room because it seems like that house shouldn't have been $625, right? Maybe it should be more like a $615. So maybe writing $10,000 under asking isn't crazy. But then, there's other things that come into play there, right? Because is the seller expecting to have a little wiggle room, or are they stubborn and headstrong that it's this or bust? And these are all things that your agent should help determine when writing an offer. Every offer you write or every property you like is independent of the previous one. Or just because your cousin got a house for $40,000 under asking doesn't mean that you can get $40,000 under asking. This case is going to be unique where, what are the details, the parameters of this particular situation to justify or validate the offer that you are writing at. Your offer has to be backed up with facts. You can't write for $600 on a $625 just because your budget is $600. That doesn't make sense. And it's going to be perceived that you don't know what you're doing. And if the comps are $625, $625, $625 for the last three model matches sold, then that's the value of the home. So You know, I kind of went through this pretty fast. I did get up to about 15 minutes here. Of course, if you ever have any questions, you can reach out to myself or Cherrie or Camden or Missy, and, you know, let us help you. When we meet a new buyer, we like to have you come into the office. Let's sit down. We have a packet that we go through that explains so much of the process and the market and conditions, and, you know, and try to really set you up for success for what your expectations are. And we would love to do that. If you're thinking about buying, we would love to do that for you. Ask us, come in. Shoot, just ask us for the packet. We can send it to you in a PDF. You can look through it. And if you ever have any questions, please let us know. Thanks again. I am Zach McReynolds, Cherrie and Zach team, NextHome Real Estate Rockstars, and I'll talk to you soon.